I know that when we look at this past year's weather patterns around the world, it was quite often that we were glued to CNN, MSNBC, or whatever news channel you watch. And there were some horrific pictures that came into our homes from around the world where people who were in the way of Category 5 hurricanes. And we have, I see some hands back there, yes. And today, I asked him to do this. He was in Puerto Rico when the dear sister hurricane decided she was going to blow up the coast and blow the whole island away. Don Davis is a prayer warrior. He loves the Lord. He's a family man. He's served his church with dignity and great commitment. And I asked him if he would, on this Sunday, come before us and share his live experience in Puerto Rico. Let's welcome now to this sacred desk my dear brother, Don Davis. God is good. God is good.
Good morning. What a view. Wow. My name is Don Davis, and me and my family, Jasmine and Sheila, please stand up, ladies. My other son, Chester, is not here. We were the family that back in September, we were stranded in Puerto Rico, and some of you were praying on our behalf. So on behalf of my family, we would like to thank all of you who prayed for us during that very challenging but later fruitful time in our lives. I also want to thank Pastor Gary for allowing me this opportunity to publicly share my testimony with the storms, challenges, and struggles, and how God protected, provided, and educated us during this one of the most challenging times in our lives. So, but before I get into this testimony, the actual Puerto Rico experience, I need to give you some insights of a series of events that led up to this trip for us. I want to give you a glimpse into our state of mind because of the personal storms and challenges that we were already going through prior to this trip. In June, Sheila went on a Caribbean cruise, and on her first day off the ship in Cozumel, Mexico, she fell and tore the tendon in her right knee. When she returned home, I had 100% of all the family responsibilities on my plate. She's still recovering now, and while we were in Puerto Rico, she was on crutches. Several months later, in August, our family endured a devastating blow. Now, this crisis and series of events that unfolded during this time shook the very core of my family. It hurt us all so deep, and I felt like my spirit had been shattered. And I often asked God, why? He didn't answer, but we still trusted him. We have since made progress, but we're still in recovery in that situation, and we know our God is faithful and true. Finally, a couple weeks after that devastating blow, my wife started planning our daughter's wedding, which was set for September 16th, the day before we were to leave for Puerto Rico. See, our plates were full with life challenges, struggles, and storms, and honestly, we needed a getaway. The wedding was beautiful. Sheila did an outstanding job, and we all were truly blessed. Now, headed to Puerto Rico. It was finally Sunday, and we were headed to Puerto Rico. Now, here's the million-dollar question that I've heard a million times. Don't you check the Weather Channel before you travel? Didn't you know that a storm was headed to Puerto Rico? As a matter of fact, some of you right now are probably thinking that same question. I know. But as a matter of fact, especially Jimmy, he got on me. But as a matter of fact, honestly, at that point, we didn't really know. We only knew that Hurricane Irma had recently just missed Puerto Rico. So our flight path was scheduled to be San Diego to Chicago to Puerto Rico. And we arrived in Chicago several hours prior to this Puerto Rico flight. So while we're waiting, this very talkative lady approached us with details about Maria and how it was headed straight to Puerto Rico. In total shock, we automatically all grabbed our phones and started to research this information that she was giving us. Instantly, I didn't have a good feeling about this, and I was already to abort the trip. Abort, let's just get out of here. I didn't have a good feeling about this. But by now, this information was all on all the monitors everywhere around us. Shortly after, I went to my family with a proposal that wasn't received very well. And it wasn't to go. Instead, they believed that Maria would turn, just as Irma did. Now, this decision literally divided my family, and I was torn inside. But and unknown by anyone in my family at that time, this scene right here cracked the foundation of my marriage and my heart. It did. We soon would be knowingly headed to a Category 5 hurricane. This troubled me deeply because now I was at emotional odds with the people that were the closest to me, and my emotional state of being was utter despair. And honestly, at this point, just visualizing that, I felt that there was no hope. Now, here's a $2 million question. What? You knew about it and you went anyway? Are you crazy? So you guys are laughing because you know exactly what I'm saying. All I can say is this. Now, looking at that in retrospect, this trip honestly was ordained by God. And it needed to happen to us. Now, whether you understand that or not, this God's grad school experience was in his plan for us. And honestly, I didn't understand it then. I don't fully understand it now, but I just know. Okay, the flight. This was the worst flight of my entire life. My family and I were knowingly headed to Puerto Rico the same time that Maria was headed there. The thought of this left me with feelings of turmoil, abandonment, fear, and uncertainty. As I prayed, I kept asking God, why this trip? Why? And while I sought and desired his perfect peace in my heart, he didn't answer me. And I'm going to tell you, I was a wreck inside. The arrival. On Monday, September the 18th, we arrived, and it was a beautiful day in Puerto Rico. We got our rental car and headed to the resort. At check-in, we were originally given a room on the north side of the building, but that changed because the room was dirty. We moved to the 8th floor on the south side of the building with the beach view. Now, this was definitely God's favor, and you will understand why in just a moment. We hung out for a while, and it appeared that my family was having a great time. But internally, I was filled with turmoil, and I was unable to comprehend why Puerto Rico and this stuff coming. I couldn't grasp that. And I asked God in my heart, what are we doing here? I struggled to accept what was about to come upon me and my family. On Tuesday, the whole island was preparing for the storm, and in our beachfront property, it was no different. This exaggerated my feelings as I started to reach out to all the prayer warriors that I contacted, and some of you know who you are, my BSF brothers, church family, everybody, because inside me, and I'm sure my family as well, it was a bad place. As the evening approached, we're going to talk about the hurricane now. As the evening approached, the wind started to pick up as the storm approached the island. By 11 p.m., the winds were roaring like a locomotive train just inches away from my window. The sound of the storm and the destruction that came with it clearly gave me a glimpse of God's mighty power and fury. God now had my undivided attention. As my family and I lay in that room, we prayed, and with some uncertainty of how this would end, we trusted God. My wife and I lay there in the bed holding hands as the building swayed and the sound of utter destruction roared outside that 8-story window. It was at this point my wife indicated to me that she felt we would be okay because of this indescribable peace that had come over her. God had given her this peace. I was playing praise and worship music on my slacker radio until I lost service. And then I started to sing praise and worship songs from my heart. And as I praised and worshiped God until I fell asleep, man, knowing that he was the only one that could protect us, he was the only one that we could trust. Wow. Okay, let me tell you about this wake-up call. At approximately 3 a.m., we were awakened by fierce banging and yelling at our door. When I opened the door, a hotel worker yelled, "You got to evacuate this room. The resort might not make it." Now understand, it wasn't just our room. It was every room that they were doing this to. As we stumbled around and grabbed our already ready-made backpacks, we headed for a shelter in the stairwell, taking extra precautions for my wife's disability. While in the stairwell, I was fearful, frustrated, and angry, and I asked God, why are we here? We sat there for hours through the height of the storm, and with all this fury, as it ripped apart multiple storm glass windows, shutters, and even rooms where the walls were buckling inside the hallway throughout the resort, mostly on the north side of the resort. Remember that move I talked about? Mostly on the north side of the resort. So after the storm eventually passed, and we were eventually able to go back to our undamaged room, but without power and water. You can clap. That was a blessing. The next few weeks were even more challenging, or the next few days, I should say, were even more challenging and stressful for everyone. The aftermath, as you've seen everywhere, was devastation everywhere. This added to the stress that came over us. And again, this situation shook the foundation of our family. Most of the decisions had to be made, and this was a tough, challenging time. And it wasn't easy. And again, I'm trying to put this in perspective and give you the digest version, a glimpse into this. We were already stressed, but this stuff compounded the tensions in my already stressed family. But being a former military man, I was in survival mode. I wanted to make the best decisions for what was best for me and my family. Unfortunately, it didn't go as smooth as planned. But God, who is faithful and true, gave me the wisdom to handle the test and persevere. But I was at my breaking point and ready to toss in the towel on all of them. And I'm sure they felt the same way about me, but at this time, I'm trying to give you a glimpse of the stress and all the stuff that's going on and all the stressors that we talked about leading up to this. We had a lot on our plate at this time in our lives. With flight cancellations, food and water challenges, devastation, and unresolved stressors in our lives, and with a divided family, I was done. And the grand finale was when our September 27th flight was canceled and moved to October 14th. This heartbreaking news left me numb, and my family didn't receive this news very well either. On September 27th, the day after receiving that heartbreaking news, God provided us and many others a humanitarian cruise ship off this island. The ship was a total blessing and the beginning of the end for this long journey. But it was on board the ship when I actually was able to somewhat relax and start to process what had just happened. It was also at this point when I started to reflect on all the storms and all the challenges and all the oppositions that had occurred in my family, and especially with my wife. It was this division with my wife during this very challenging time that stood out in my mind the most. Consequently, I had wrongfully decided in my heart that it was over. Now I want you to understand this. It wasn't just this situation. It was a series of things that brought Don, not them, Don, me, to this point. And I felt that it was over. Wrongfully in my heart that it was over. I felt that it was time for a new chapter. And I thought she felt the same. Mentally, I had started to shut down. And in my heart, I blamed her for so many things. But let me tell you about this word from God. As I walked around as a godly man with these unholy thoughts constantly racing through my mind and in my heart, God, who is faithful and true, lovingly said to me at one point here, how dare you blame her for anything, especially a decision that you didn't make? Don, do you remember that storm that I just brought you through? You trusted me through that storm. Did I provide? Did I also give you insight and take you through every challenge and circumstance that came upon you and your family? Was I faithful? Do you remember the fury of that storm? My power controlled that storm. I'm the God you called on when you knew that there was nowhere else to go and there was no one else who you could call. He said, you trusted me. You called on me. Remember? Now, that same trust and faith in me that got you through that physical storm will get you through the personal storms of your marriage and any other storm in your life. He says, all you have to do is continue to trust me and put your faith in me. I love you, son. I got you. I was so filled with conviction that I went to my wife with a changed and repentant heart. I did. Her and I started to communicate about our experience, and we both acknowledged where we had gone wrong. As a result, we have made tremendous progress, and our relationship has gotten stronger because of this. As for the other storms mentioned, we're still working through those too, but God continues to be faithful and true to us. In closing, I want to share a few more of the spiritual insights that the Lord placed upon me during this time. He said, I want you to be completely mature and not lacking in anything. You learn to endure by having your faith tested. And you learn to endure everything. This is what he told me. He said, your faith grows when you are tested. And finally, he said, you will never know the strength of your anchor in me, son, until you feel the blast of the storm. And that was physical and personal for me at this time. So, he said, instead of asking me, why, Lord? You need to ask me, Lord, how do you want to use this trial to develop me spiritually? What is my assignment? And to do this, you need to be willing to obey me, and you must be prepared. Now, I believe if you ask anyone in my family if we wanted to experience this again, I suspect the answer would unanimously be no. No doubt. But this experience was a lifelong lesson, and we get it. Sheila and I have often discussed this experience, and we both agree that our biggest regret was not allowing the Lord to use us more in blessing others. Now, I said more because we were on assignment as well, but we got in the way for some of the things I've already mentioned to you. But my God continues to be faithful and true in our lives. And ironically, my testimony ends with the theme of the month. We ended up. Thank you.
Don Davis, ladies and gentlemen, a servant of the Most High God and a witness to what faith in God will do. You know, somebody might say, well, you know, he talked too much. But you know what? It's his story. And I needed to hear some of his response. Because I think that all of us have been in that place where we have questioned God on things and said, why? And his response, the way he responded to Job, where were you when I put the stars in his, you know what? I got the power to give life and to take it away. The winds and the waves obey me. I tell the wind to blow and which way to go and what the velocity should be. So it was helpful for me because I imagine I'm not the only one in the room that finds themselves at time that may be in it now, in that question, God, why me? Or why this? And when will it end? I've never been in a Category 5 hurricane and don't want to go. But if I have to be in one, I got a testimony I can lean on. I can look back and say, well, Don said, Don told me. Everybody bow your head for just a moment. Let's